Connor at Saturday Down South, of course, joining us every Monday. Connor, how you doing today?
Gentlemen, I'm doing well. I got a question for you. How many times have you played Chris Stapleton's Arkansas in the last 2 weeks since it's been released?
I think that's the first time on this
is the first time on our show. Now, Ty on the Morning Rush has played that thing at least 10 or 15 times a day it came out.
Gosh, I'm just surprised that Ty hasn't actually sang it himself on the show.
I can't blame him. If Chris Stapleton made a song about my state, which take your guess as to which state that is at this point. I don't really know. I could probably claim about 4. I'd be pretty fired up. I'm just saying.
It's a great song. If you haven't heard it, if you're out there listening, you can find that. I think it's on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, you name it. Just look up Chris Stapleton, Arkansas. It is a good song.
Best thing of 2020 for the state. We can puff our chest up here a little bit. Interesting game at Kyle Field on Saturday, Connor, and it went totally against the story that all of us built up throughout the week, that it was all going to be about Texas A&M's running game and that Arkansas would have to establish the run. This game came down to Kellen Mond, his offensive line protecting him. That was as good as I've ever seen Kellen Mond play.
This offense has an identity, and it hasn't the last 3 years, and it's been sort of searching for its identity somewhere during a Kellen Mond scramble or errant throw. And I saw on Saturday an A&M team that looks like offensively it has figured a lot of things out. And they have a very unique weapon right now with Anaya Smith. And that was what I kept saying, last week and, even during the bye week, was that this guy presents different problems for defenses. And we're talking about Barry Odom and how well prepared he's been for every single offense that he's faced so far. I don't know that he's seen a weapon quite like Anaya Smith and all the different things that he can do as a true hybrid, kind of modern-day back. He really, I thought, was important in that game, and he was such a difficult guy to defend and to take into account when he got in space. And I thought that was key. Kellen Mond was tremendous, don't get me wrong. I think his continued emergence is one of the more intriguing storylines of 2020 so far, but this A&M offense is just different, and it's different than the ones that Arkansas has had to defend in years past.
Well, the storyline of A&M's offense is really intriguing because the whole thought for the first 5 weeks is that, without Jamon Osborne, when he opts out, they don't have a group of experienced receivers that can make plays. It's not what I watched on Saturday. I watched guys that can make plays, and this tight end, Weidermeyer, other than Kyle Pitts, he might be the best pass-catching tight end in the SEC. So the thought of A&M being just a run-heavy offense, I don't think of them like that anymore because Arkansas's secondary was really good, but they got shredded. For me, this is a very dangerous Aggies offense if they play anything to the level that we saw on Saturday, and that's no matter who they play, Georgia included. I know that they don't play them, but if they did, I think they would give Georgia fits.
Yeah, and I'd be really interested to see that matchup, and especially now with Georgia dealing with a myriad of injuries. In this A&M offense, I looked at what they were trying to do coming into this year, and that was figure out those pass-catching options. Weidermeyer was the most sure thing in that department. Quietly last year as a freshman, he was an all-SEC guy. We just didn't really talk about him as much because the thinking was, okay, well, Baylor Cupp, who was the former number 1 overall tight end in that 2019 class, he's surely going to be the guy this year. Then he goes down, and then they lose all these guys in the offseason and in the preseason as well, where you're talking about Cameron Buckley also being a guy that they lost, in addition to Osborne opting out. And you're just like, wow, who in the world besides Weidermeyer is going to catch passes? But they have found different ways to sustain drives. And I'm going to give Jimbo Fisher credit. I've been really critical of him in the past, and I kind of thought he was one of those guys who, offensively speaking, was looking like maybe he's just kind of past his prime. But things look a lot easier for this A&M offense, and they've been able to execute in a way that, quite frankly, I did not see coming, despite the fact that I had them predicted to start off 4-1. I'm now changing my tune on them and saying that they're a different team, and they're capable of doing some better things than I originally predicted.
Connor O'Gara here with us on Halftime. Connor, what are some positives, if you're an Arkansas fan, that you would take away from this matchup heading into the Tennessee game this coming Saturday?
If Arkansas was going to have a chance to potentially get to maybe a 4-6, a 5-5 year, which I thought would be an A-plus sort of effort from Sam Pittman in year one, it was going to need Rakeem Boyd to be Raheem Boyd, and he was in this game. That's the good news. You get him to 100 yards, he looked healthy. And to me, that's a different sort of element to add to this offense when, they really haven't had the benefit of him looking like himself early in this year. And the fact that they've been able to get off to that great of a start is a testament to Kendall Briles as well. But I look at that, and then I look at Felipe. I said coming into this year, Felipe is going to be the Jameis Winston, and I think that there are still some things about him that make me believe that there could be some frustrating moments coming. But, he had another game in which he looked pretty calm and in control for a good amount of it. And he's not perfect. He still, in my opinion, takes a few too many sacks. But at the same time, he didn't make that necessarily back-breaking mistake in that game. And I thought that's the type of effort that you can take from him. And, I think the last, 4 weeks, really, ever since that opener against Georgia, had a lot more highs than lows. And I think if you're this Arkansas offense who's looking to build and looking to find this identity, find an identity like what A&M has, I think that seeing those two guys play like they did was encouraging.
Let's jump around the SEC and get your thoughts on what happened out here. And I first want to start, what in the hell happened with LSU and Auburn this weekend? Good Lord, I don't think anybody was expecting the beatdown that Auburn put down on LSU.
LSU was a 3-point favorite.
Yes.
I picked LSU to win that game. Oh, my goodness. This LSU defense doesn't really have a lot of margin for error. And for about a quarter and a half, they looked pretty good, all things considered. And then the turnovers happened. And you had a true freshman make mistakes that you just cannot make in a game like that against a team like Auburn, who has Kevin Steele, the highest paid defensive coordinator in the country. And that was a vintage Kevin Steele game. And once that happened and they got those game-changing turnovers, it completely flipped the script. Bo Nix settled in. Chad Morris called a great offensive game. I know. I have said that very, very few times in my life. He did. I'll give him credit.
I can't believe I just heard those words.
I know. And you just bleep that. Actually, go back and for the podcast version, bleep that out. But, I was blown away because, they were good high percentage throws. They were getting, big chunks of yards from their receivers as well. And the play at the end where you get Anthony Schwartz on single coverage, and that's the throw and catch that they've been drawing up for a long time on the Plains. And I think that, what we saw from LSU was just more of the same. LSU, I made a comparison. It's like 2013 Kentucky basketball. That was the team that, coming off that national title team with Anthony Davis and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, all these guys going to the NBA, 2013 Kentucky lost in the first round of the NIT to Robert Morris. And it had like Kyle Wiltshire and like a handful of guys who are like, yeah, they're talented, but they have no glue. They have no alpha. And that week to week, they just are totally unpredictable. LSU is a shell of its former self, and that's going to remain to be the case in this all SEC season that we're having.
And when you look, also the other game I want to touch on before I throw it back over to Phil, with the Florida-Missouri matchup, obviously Florida comes away with the victory, but I'm curious what made you shake your head more, that brawl right before halftime happened or Dan Mullen coming out as Darth Vader for the press conference? What made you shake your head more?
The brawl.
Yeah.
Dan Mullen's got to settle down. There's no reason to get that worked up to where you got a state trooper separating you from the referees in the middle of a game? What? This wasn't just yelling at the refs. And I know Florida fans are going to defend it, and they're going to say, yeah, that's my coach. I love what he's doing. I love how the players are responding. That's all well and good. If you're a coach of a team that's trying to win an SEC championship, make it to a playoff, you got to be more in control than that. And we've seen early on this year, Dan Mullen's been, in a different sort of mood. And we saw it after the A&M game where he has that reaction to the A&M crowd, and he's just too fired up. And, for someone who is so calm, cool, and collected for the majority of the time, it seems like he lost it. He absolutely lost it. And there's no place for that. And, you can go back and watch that. He wasn't even standing up for his quarterback. He said he didn't even see the play at the end of the half that happened with Kyle Trask. But then, his actions crossing over, into the Mizzou bench area or near it was what incited that entire brawl. I don't think that type of behavior from an SEC head coach, much less one trying to get to the playoff, has any sort of place. And I think that Florida fans who are, excusing that as passable behavior, I think they have their blinders on.
Oh, that would never happen with a football fan base. Come on. That reminded me a little bit. I know it's much different because he was at the end of his career when it happened, but the whole Woody Hayes incident on the sideline, punching one of the opposing wide receivers, Mullen's lucky that he got held back Because if he didn't, honestly, you could end up with a suspension for the rest of the season. So the last thing I want to touch on with you here, Connor, we got Tennessee, Arkansas Saturday. This is in Fayetteville. Tennessee has looked like a low-level college football team for the last 10 quarters that they've played. I mean, they've been blown off the field in those 10 quarters. They're a favorite, according to Vegas, by 1 point, 1.5 points. But that just, I'm thoroughly surprised at that. Give me a couple of thoughts on what you might expect to see this weekend, Arkansas versus Tennessee.
Tennessee defense, still good. Let's not discount the Tennessee defense. Henry To'oTo'o is still playing at an All-America level. That defense is not getting enough help, and they are capable of frustrating the Arkansas offense. The Tennessee offensive line and that ground game still can have some big chunk plays in this one. The quarterback situation for Tennessee remains a mess. If I am Jeremy Pruitt, I'm going to Harrison Bailey coming off of a bye week, and knowing that Barry Odom has been so well prepared, if he gets to face Jared Garantano, man, he's going to be licking his lips on Saturday, because that is an enticing matchup for somebody who's just drawn up all sorts of ways to confuse offenses. I think that would be a big mistake on Jeremy Pruitt's part to have anything but Harrison Bailey as his starting quarterback. But, yeah, very, very interesting game, and one that is going to be much, much closer than I would have originally predicted.
Yeah, outscored 82-24 in their last two games, and then, of course, got outscored 14-0 or maybe 28-0 in the last two quarters against Georgia. So, I mean, that's pretty ugly. We'll see what happens on Saturday, Connor, but always appreciate your time. Thanks so much, and have a good week.
Thanks, Connor.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys.
Connor O'Gara from Saturday Down South. By the way, what do you think is the worst hire for an assistant coach in the SEC this year? You think Bo Pelini's going to make it through the season? Guy's making like $2 million a year. For that?
He sure ain't earning it, that's for sure.
Well, maybe there's a defensive coordinator position open at that middle school in Tennessee where John Chavis is taking his career.
Ed Orgeron should just take it over and get rid of him.
Absolutely. See if that happens. Hey, by the way, don't forget, if you own a business that needs more security or more curb appeal, it's the Fence Man. They'll be over for a quick, no-obligations quote if you just call 479-782-3936. Fence Man's been doing it over 40 years, and nobody does it any better. Gates, controlled access card readers, much more. That's the Fence Man, 479-782-3936. Fence Man, a division of Quantum Property Services. First hour to wrap up after the break.